I'm going to bring the automobile industry back from Mexico to all these places that are taking our business. So I'm going to be bringing it back. So I think nobody's been better to Michigan than me. And now
I have a huge following on WJR in Detroit, Michigan, and all the other states. Before you go, Donald, you're a businessman. People don't understand business. Socialists like Bernie Sanders, who never ran a corned beef stand, don't understand that business means some businesses succeed and some fail. So what they do, like the creeps at the Daily News, they come up with some of your ventures that didn't work, and they try to make it look like you're a crook or a bad businessman. What they don't understand is that business is a gamble. Some businesses work, some fail. Isn't that true?
But my businesses really work. And the ones that they have these little things, number one, they're still in business. I don't even know what they mean. They talk about a water company. They talk about these different things. I still have them. But my businesses work. I never even saw the thing in the Daily News. I mean, the good news, I guess not a lot of people read the Daily News, but my businesses work. Hey, Michael, I made billions and billions and billions of dollars. I started off with very, very little, and I made billions and billions of dollars. And
that's something that the college class of spoiled inheritance cases don't understand. Guys who say you inherited the money from your father. I happen to know from having read everything I could about you and your great father was he didn't give you a lot of money. He gave you an initial seed loan, which you paid back. Your father was a great man, yet they even smeared him. Here's a man who built apartment houses all over middle-class Brooklyn and Queens, and they made him into a bad guy for doing it. So what more can you expect from these people? They've never built a thing in their life, Donald.
No, they're bad people, Michael, and they're liars. They're real liars, and it's a shame. It's a shame they can get away with it. But
now, I saw something positive, Donald. Trudeau, the left-winger in Canada, said, I'll work with Trump if he wins. He's smarter than I thought. He senses you just might become president.
Well, we're doing well. I mean, despite all this bad press, I have to tell you, the press is brutal. If you look at what the New York Times says and all these people, and it's absolutely, and so it's such lies. What they say is just incredible. And then when you call them to have it corrected, they agree with you, and then they say, but we're not correcting it.
Yeah, I've seen that my whole life. Look, this guy Trudeau, he's very smart. He's saying, look, I'm not an American, I'm a Canadian. He doesn't know who's going to win, but he said, I can work with Donald Trump if he wins. So he smells which way the wind is blowing, and then he says about Americans who may want to move to Canada. If you become president, he's offering them Cape Breton and Nova Scotia. You know what? I'd pay one-way fares for all of the liberals on the Upper West Side of Manhattan. I'd raise all the money I could to give them one-way tickets to Cape Breton. Would you join me in that, Donald?
That's funny. Well, it's interesting. I built many units on the West Side, that whole city, from 72nd Street to 59th Street. They don't talk about that, by the way. They only talk about water, or they talk about something else, which, by the way, I still have. You know, these companies that they said didn't, they're little companies. They're all little companies, but most of them are doing very well.
Yes, but the critics are those who never ran a business or tried business. So even if the companies aren't making money, the fact is that some win and some lose, some win big, some lose big, some win small and some lose small. That is capitalism. Last, business, we touched that. How about the health care? You seem to be leaning to more of a government-style control of health care. Would you grant health care to illegal aliens in this country?
No, I wouldn't. And frankly, I'm not. What I want to do is private. I want to bring, we want to knock out the lines. We want to do a lot of different things, Michael, so that we can have competitive private health care. And that's going to take care of most of it. Now, you'll have some people at the very, very bottom that just don't have money. And we go through Medicare, Medicaid. We go through some kind of a formula because we don't want people dying in the middle of the streets.
But Donald, listen, I've said this and people don't understand it. It doesn't matter. If you gave them government-subsidized health care, it would cost us less than what it's costing us now with them having 100% care in any hospital in America. I've gone in the ER room for problems of my own in California. You see them around the clock. They come in with a sniffle, the next day with a broken hand, a broken arm. They get gold-plated health care. There are no limits on what they get, Donald. We'd be better off giving them some kind of program that was limited. Do you know that?
Right. What we have now is the worst, Michael. It's the worst of all, and it's going to die of its own volition, but we're going to terminate it. If I win, we terminate it, we replace it with really good stuff that's going to cost a lot less money.
What about Social Security, Donald Trump?
Try and save it, Michael. We got to save it. Look, these people have been paying in for years. Now, we're losing our jobs. We're losing our money. Everything's leaving the country. You look at, hey, I'm in Mississippi now. They're complaining they're losing so many jobs. I was in Michigan a couple of days ago. They're complaining they're losing so many jobs to Mexico and to other places. We're going to bring back our jobs. We're going to make our country rich again, and we're going to be able to save Social Security.
Donald, before you go, I just want to repeat what I said here for 2 hours. Because of the vicious attacks upon you, a man is more clearly defined by his enemies than by his friends. And by that definition, you're in great company. Some of the sickest, most radical left-wing vermin in this country and abroad are ripping you to shreds. You know what? God bless you, because I don't like them very much.
Right, I understand. It's
all right, Donald, I wish you luck tomorrow in Michigan, Mississippi, Idaho, and Hawaii. And I hope you can come back to the Savage Nation and you don't forget me when you become president.
I will never forget you, Michael. You've been my friend, and I appreciate it. You've been so loyal and so great, and I appreciate it, Michael.
Well, I hope you didn't mind some of the tough questions, because people have been saying you got to ask him this.
No,
thank you.
I love those questions. I mean,
and I knew that you would, and I also knew that you wouldn't be afraid to answer them, because you're telling the truth. Okay, that's the thing that they hate the most. Donald, I know you're really afraid of Mitt Romney. Tell us about that wimp. Where's that coming from?
The guy is the worst candidate probably in the history of presidential politics. He came out of nowhere. I mean, he just came out of nowhere. This guy disappeared 4 years ago. He disappeared. He didn't run. He should have beaten Obama easily. And now he gets up and criticizes. He should use the same energy to go against Obama. Maybe.
Thank you. Right, if he used 1/10 of the viciousness against you, against Obama, he would have destroyed him in those 3 debates. He took a fall for the Republican Party because he beat him in the first debate, and then they told him to take a fall in number 2 and 3, and the rest is history. Donald Trump, I won't keep you any longer. Thank you for being on the Savage Nation. I'll be right back, everybody. Join the
Well, that was Michael Savage and a guy named Donald Trump. Do you know who he is? I hope you do, and I hope you vote for him, because let me tell you something. The man answers a question like Michael Savage just said. He talks the truth. It's very easy to answer questions and respond to the media and people asking you stuff when you tell the truth. They don't like the truth, but it doesn't matter. When you say the truth, you win. That's it. That's why he's winning. Very, very simple formula. Tell the truth, and you will win every single time. So this is what we got going for us. We got the number one candidate that's ever run for the presidency of the United States is Donald Trump, and he needs your friggin' votes, because we got a lot of enemies out there that aren't back in this country, and they are specious people, and they need to be defeated. We need to win. Donald Trump needs to win, and then we can get this country back on the right road, away from the cliff. Let's get back to strength and production, and let's get this country back on its feet to where we can be respected around the world again. We've lost that, severely lost it under this Obama administration. One of the first things he did was go around the world apologizing for America. Can you imagine? You're elected the highest office in the land, and you go around the world to some of our enemies, really, and bow to them and apologize for America? You got to be kidding me. I mean, this, I hate to say it, but we don't need to be electing people that have a chip on their shoulder. And this Obama had a chip on his shoulder. And he is the supreme racist. That is a racist, okay? When you start complaining or start apologizing for America, America freed the slaves, remember? Yeah, but now we owe money to the great-great-great-great-grandchildren of these slaves. This is ridiculous. We are a country of stupid, stupid people, and we need to educate our people properly. We need to get some conservatives, some good ideology in our classrooms to teach our students the proper policies and the proper, if you want to teach Santa Claus principles, you can teach the Democratic Party line, I guess, that if you want to be somebody that is dependent upon government, you want to have your hand out, you want this supposed utopian that the government offers you, you can get your welfare check, you can get your food stamps, and you can be one of the causes for the $20 trillion in debt that we have now. If that's the way you want to live, if that's your game plan, well, have at it, I guess. But on the other hand, if teachers in schools would teach the other side of the policy issue and the conservatism, that you want to take care of yourself, you want to produce something, you want to be a productive member of society, you want to pay your taxes and pay bills that are common bills for the protection of the country, for roads, for things that the government does, and some things they do very well. But when they start getting into areas that they don't belong, that's quite honestly unconstitutional for them to do so, they fall flat on their face because the government can't really do much of anything. The protection, the reason that we can be protected is we have military hardware that's been developed over the years. We have a military that is led by very, very smart people. These are career military people, not politicians. They're career military people, and they know how to run an army, and they know how to win wars. We just have to let them win the wars and institute their policies that they know how to do things with, and they'll win. That's the reason that our military is so effective, because technically it's not run by a bunch of moron politicians like Obama and Nancy Pelosi and Harry Reid. You know, if you run the military that you get $1.79 back for every dollar in unemployment, you're going to have a very, very bad military. And thank God that we have the knowledge to let our military leaders, for the most part, have their say. Obama doesn't really follow that policy, and that's why we've had 4 or 5 top generals retire early, because they weren't going to put up with Obama. And we've lost some very, very qualified, good generals as a result. And that's despicable. And that should not stand. We have to be a country that has the strongest military in the world. And like Donald Trump says, our military will be so strong under his leadership that nobody would consider messing with us. When we had Ronald Reagan in the White House, and the day before he took office, the Iranians decided we better get rid of these hostages, otherwise Ronald Reagan's going to strap on his 6-shooters and come over here and have a talk with us. So they didn't want any part of that, so they got rid of the hostages. It's going to be the same thing with Trump. Just having Trump in the White House is going to scare the hell out of some of these people that need to be scared. You got ISIS over there chopping off people's heads. Let me tell you something. Your days are numbered, because when Trump gets elected, your days are numbered. And that in and of itself, people, if you have a hard time trying to figure out who Trump is or what Trump is or anything else, why don't you just vote for Trump on the basis that he's going to stop ISIS from cutting off heads? How about that one? Can you swallow that one? Maybe you can reach deep down inside of whatever brain you have left and say, you know what, that's a good point, because Hillary Clinton has already had the ropes for 4 years when she was Secretary of State, and she did nothing but cause us to lose the embassy in Benghazi and cause the death of 4 Americans that were defending the same, and without any help. Our military was told to stand down. Now, why would they be told to stand down? That makes absolutely no sense. When your military officers are under attack, you don't stand down, you go do something about it. But when you got Hillary Clinton in the White House answering the phone at 3 a.m, like whatever her speech plan was back when she ran for president before and got defeated by Obama, this is, yeah, she got the call at 3 a.m. all right and said, stand down. I mean, this is a despicable person. She's being investigated by no less than 150 full-time FBI agents, and they're investigating the illegal things that she did. And this is a person that's running for president. Are you serious? I guess in these times that we live in, with such a devastated Democratic Party, where you're coming off of 7.5 years of one of the most despicable, if not the most despicable leader this country's ever had, Jimmy Carter is still jumping in the streets celebrating the fact that Obama came along, because prior to his arrival, Carter was noted as the worst president ever. Well, he's been removed from that status thanks to our buddy Obama. So Carter's very happy about that. But you think about it, this Democratic Party is at the end of their rope. They're talking about how disenfranchised or fractured the Republican Party is. Well, let me tell you something. We're beginning to learn why that is also, because that party, both parties, The parties are corrupt organizations, and they're so influenced by power that they just can't give it up. They're on a drug, the drug of power. And these Republican leaders, the entrenched Republican hierarchy, is running scared, and they're scared to death of a guy named Donald Trump. Now, along with no more cutting off of heads with ISIS and eliminating ISIS as a reason to vote for Trump, how about voting for Trump just to teach these Republican Party a lesson? They're out of touch with the American people, and they need to be taught a lesson. They're going to lose their power, and they should lose their power. You know where the power belongs? With the people of this country. We the people. Remember that? That's the way this country was founded. We the people. And this is what needs to be restored, that we have the power and we need to use it. And we need to make sure, damn sure, that this country is led by people that follow our wishes. And the power and the law needs to be upheld. If we need new laws, we'll pass new laws. If we need to eliminate some laws, we'll eliminate some laws. But we need to do it. And we need to run this country by whatever laws are on the books at the time. That's very, very important, that we have to be a country of laws. And right now, we're not. And I got some firsthand experience with that here in Nevada, where I went before a court for a very limited action to get access to bank records. And what I ended up with was a judge the other day calling me an antagonist. I asked the court to rule by law, and I'm an antagonist. That's according to a despicable judge named William Gephardt calls me an antagonist. I'm an antagonist because that's what the lawyers are calling me. And the reason the lawyers are calling me that is because I am against them getting paid, because they didn't do a job. They didn't do anything that they're entitled payment for, except they defended a crook. They defended a client named Wanda Feeley, my sister, who was stealing money from a trust. That's it. What is there to defend? The lawyers didn't abide by their own ethics laws by defending a guilty party. This wasn't a criminal action. This was a civil action. She stole money. And not only did her lawyer not abide by the law and make damn sure that she wasn't stealing money, he promoted it. And he submitted false documents to the court purporting them to be bank statements. They weren't bank statements. These were spreadsheets that were done on a home computer, done by Wanda Feeley to smokescreen everybody and fake these, whoever she thought these idiots were, into believing that these were bank statements. They were the furthest thing from any bank statement I've ever seen. And when we did finally get the right bank statements, the documents that she was submitting as her bank statements were totally fraudulent. They didn't report what was on the bank statements. It hid income. It hid money that she spent. I mean, it's absolutely pathetic what was done in this case. She was a big crook. And I have a judge on the bench calling me an antagonist. That judge needs to go. He needs to go. And he doesn't know the law. The other day, he was going to award fees against a spendthrift trust. Let me ask you something, Mr. Lawyer, if you got 1 second. Do you know what a spendthrift trust is?
I studied it in law school, and I would have reviewed it some when I was ready to take the exam, but I don't remember a lot about it. I don't remember the requirements in every state. I know it has definitely defined elements, because any trust law case that pertained to that would be easy to find, and it would tell you the basic requirements in every state. But I don't know. I can't say that I know a lot about it.
Well, let me see if this refreshes your memory. The name spendthrift means something, and
Right.
it means
It
that
means
somebody is protecting somebody, maybe even against themselves.
It means that the assets are protected from attack by opposing parties.
Right, and that would include any attack from a court, because a court cannot rule, for example, to award any payments from a trust, the corpus of a trust, to anybody.
I would agree with that totally.
Well-
I've also told you that although I've been to I've watched a lot of the tapes of the different hearings, and I've looked at a lot of the written materials. I've never seen spendthrift trust in any issue for a court's determination. And that's you won't get a ruling until you ask the right question.
Well, we have two trusts involved in this case. They're both spendthrift trusts. They both contain a spendthrift clause, a whole paragraph designated to the spendthrift provisions. And this judge now is going to have to rule on whether he's going to allow the payment of attorney fees from the corpus of a trust. And that's not legal. You cannot do that, Judge. This is the same judge that called me an antagonist. And what he's doing by calling me an antagonist is he's listening to the lawyers on the other side of this case, and these lawyers all want one thing in common. They want to be paid. And the only way they're going to be paid is to be paid from where the money is. And the money is either from me or it's held in trust for beneficiaries. And you can't attack a trust, okay? That's where the money is. They can't get the money from the trust. They can't get it from me because they don't have a contract with me. They're not representing me, and I'm the prevailing party in this matter. So they can't go after a prevailing party for legal fees either, because a non-prevailing party, by the American rule that this country seems to want to go by, is that nobody can get legal fees awarded to them from a court unless, one, they were prevailing party. Now, some courts have an exception that they will award fees if there's been a case filed that's vexatious or that's illegal or without cause. Like if you decide to sue somebody to extort money from them, some phony suit is going to cost them more money than you're asking for to defend themselves. That's kind of like extortion. So you filed a case without cause. But maybe the big company that has all the money decides to settle with you just to get rid of you. Is cheaper that way than to take you to court and prove that your cause had no cause. But like Donald Trump said the other day during a debate or whatever, or asked a question by a reporter afterwards, that he doesn't settle cases. He wins cases. Because if he were to settle with everybody, he'd be sued every single day, 10 times a day some days. I mean, because he think it would be an easy mark. Well, you cannot get money awarded to you by a court against a non-prevailing party. A prevailing party. I prevailed in this case. I had my sister removed as trustee because she was stealing money from a trust account, that half of which was my money, she was stealing from me. I never got a dime from the money trust. It all went to my sister. She stole every friggin' penny of it. And when it came time for the judge to rule in this matter, he had made a statement from the bench one time indicating that he didn't want any lawyers working in his courtroom for free. I mean, that's what the judge says. Well, who the hell is the judge to determine whether a lawyer is going to work in his courtroom or not? I mean, that should be up to the lawyer to take a case. And it's the lawyer's responsibility to be damn sure he's going to get paid. Otherwise, how's he going to pay his light bill and his secretary and everything? A lawyer's responsibility is to cover the payment up front. And most all of them that I've ever heard of or dealt with always ask for a retainer, and then you go from there. And then they rip you off as quickly as they can, but that's another issue, and they're welcome to try whatever they do, and it's up to the client to keep them straight. But it's not up to the judge to award a losing attorney anything. It's not the judge's job. And besides that, the American rule states he can't do it, and trust law even goes further because trust law is ruled by statutes. Over time, it used to be common law is the way trusts were handled. Back in the Roman days and forward, trusts have morphed into, more or less in this country, United States, has 50 states, and all 50 states have their own trust law because they have their own sovereignty. And they like to entice people to create trust within their borders because that brings jobs and so forth along with it. It brings investment. It brings a lot of money being held at a certain state. That results in property and maybe businesses and so forth. So it's very productive for a state to entice trust activity within their borders because it helps the taxpayer. It reduces the burdens to the taxpayer because these trusts make money for the state. And Nevada, for example, toots itself as being one of the best destinations to create trust in the country. But unfortunately, through my case, they've set a precedent that they're probably the worst state to have trust in because of their out-of-control judiciary. When you have judges like Judge Earl and now Judge Gephardt sitting on a bench making determinations in trust matters that they have absolutely no experience in whatsoever. Earl himself said he had never handled a trust case as a lawyer, and he never handled a trust case as a judge. So how the hell he even took this case is beyond me, other than the fact that originally it wasn't a trust case, and it's not a trust case to this day. It's a case over a person, Wanda Feeley, who was stealing money from an out-of-state trust. That's what it comes down to. That I needed access to the bank records to prove that. Once I got the bank records, I proved it, and she was removed as trustee. That's it. The case was over. All the Judge Earl was supposed to do at the time, if he wanted to award legal fees, is award them by law, Nevada law and New Hampshire law, when there's been a breach of fiduciary duty in a trust, whether the trustee is competent or incompetent, doesn't matter. Either way, it's a breach of trust when A, you don't submit records when requested, and then when you do submit records, they're fraudulent records. That's a breach of fiduciary duty. And when you steal money and transfer money in the trust account to your own personal account for your own personal use, that's a breach of trust, period. You can call it not being competent. You can do whatever you want to do with words, like Judge Earl did, because why? Judge Earl was struggling with the language. He couldn't call it a breach of trust because there's a statute regarding breach of trust. And when a trustee does that, breaches the duty of being a trustee, there's a provision that they're responsible to restore the trust to the condition it was in prior to the breach of trust. So Judge Earl, wanting to pay all of the lawyers, even the losing attorneys, which he couldn't do anyways, but he wanted to do it, he had enough knowledge or enough moxie or enough stupidity, whatever you want to call it, to know that he could not call this a breach of trust. So he had to call it something else. So he struggled for 11 months after he got this trial. He would not make a ruling. I think that we forced him to make a ruling because my oldest son, Aaron Feeley, had gone back to New Hampshire to request a judge back there to remove my sister Wanda as trustee because he had the bank records at that time. So he had all the proof he needed to present to the judge who would have removed her. And this was supposed to be heard like at the beginning of May. And the end of April of 2013, Judge Earl decided to make a ruling like a few days before a judge in New Hampshire was going to be involved. So he more or less prevented that judge from being involved because this judge in Nevada wanted to pay legal fees. The judge in New Hampshire wouldn't have done that. So to pay his lawyers, he had to make a ruling. So he was forced off his couch to actually make a ruling. And in that ruling, he removed Wanda Feeley as trustee, and he made me trustee, although once he removed my sister, I was named in the document as trustee, successor trustee, so I became trustee the minute he removed her anyways. So he didn't have to appoint me, but he followed the law in doing so, so I don't have an issue with that. And then he also, in the same ruling, he dictated that, or he stated that Wanda Feeley, who lost the case, who was removed as trustee, who had been stealing money from the trust, that was conclusively proven, he removed her as a result, and also stated in the judgment that she was entitled to have her legal fees paid from the corpus of a trust, the New Hampshire trust. And because she had stolen all the money from the trust, there was no money left to pay from. So he looked around and determined, oh, well, we have the property there in New Hampshire. We can sell the property and pay the legal fees here in Nevada. Now, I don't know how stupid everybody is out there, or the judge expects you to be stupid, but that's the stupidest thing I ever heard of. How in the hell does a judge in Nevada dictate that a New Hampshire property be sold to pay legal fees to some clown in Nevada that lost the case? I don't understand any of this for a second, not for a second. And this was what was done. So anyways, I appealed that ruling over the fact that this Judge Earl wanted to award legal fees to a losing attorney, or any attorney for that matter. You can't award anything from the corpus of a spendthrift trust. It just can't be done. Anyways, Judge Earl either didn't know that because of the statement he made on the record on the last day of the trial at closing statements. He asked the defense attorney if the defense attorney thought that Judge Earl had the power to sell the home in New Hampshire. And the defense attorney said absolutely not, because it would be unconstitutional to do so. Well, I guess the judge didn't hear that or pay any attention to it, because 11 months later, he dictated that the home be sold in New Hampshire to pay legal fees in Nevada. I mean, that's clueless. That is absolutely clueless. I appealed that, and I appealed it on jurisdictional grounds because this judge did not have jurisdiction coming from Nevada to do anything about a New Hampshire trust. The appellate court ruled, I referred them to a case called Hansen versus Dekla, and the appellate court ruled, to me anyways, the way I read things, I can read. I'm college educated. I can read words. Apparently judges, they lose that capability at some point in their training, and along the road of being an attorney and a judge, they seem, in this case anyways, to have lost all their common sense, and they've lost the ability to read. But anyways, they, first of all, in the statement in my appellate ruling, their first statement about the Hansen and Dekla thing is that they described what the case was. And they claim, in their language, their writing, not mine, that the case was about property being in Florida. Well, that's not what the case was about at all. That's opposite what the case was about. So they can't even write down in their ruling what the case was all about. So there's something wrong with this appellate court. And I think, from my experience anyways, it needs to be disbanded, because if they can get my ruling so mixed up, how are they going to be on other rulings? And their duty was to relieve the Supreme Court from the burden of all the cases that they have, was supposed to help the Supreme Court and lessen their burden. Well, how are they helping if they're distorting the law and ruling unlawfully? They're hurting the situation. So I think they need to be disbanded, and you need to start over, or you need to have better appointed judges to that particular tribunal, if that's what you're going to have. But you have to follow the law. And the first statement that they said was not an accurate quote whatsoever. But then in their very next sentence, they said, but the Supreme Court determined that the property was not actually in Florida. It was in Delaware. So as a result of that, the Florida court would not have a jurisdiction in that matter, or personal jurisdiction either, because it just didn't matter, because the property wasn't in Nevada, in Florida. Well, that's the exact same ruling that they should have ruled here. The property that was claimed to be sellable by Judge Earl was not in Nevada. So they had no jurisdiction whatsoever to rule that that property be sold, period. They just didn't have the jurisdiction. But the appellate court Mickey Moused around with some strange language, and then they referred to the fact that even though they just stated in their ruling that the Delaware ruling was confirmed that Florida did not have the property, therefore they couldn't control anything. That's exactly what they said, but they threw in there that I never complained about personal jurisdiction, whether the court had it or not in Nevada, and so it's my fault because I never brought up personal jurisdiction. Well, this esteemed appellate court is not qualified to be a competent court, because that's not the issue. It's totally irrelevant. I didn't complain about personal jurisdiction for two reasons. A, it doesn't matter. And B, I agree with it. The judge had personal jurisdiction over me and my sister. I don't have any problem with that at all. That's the truth. So why would I complain about it? Why would I appeal it? I don't have to appeal that. And it doesn't have anything to do with jurisdiction over the subject matter. Subject matter in this particular case was property being located outside of the purview of Nevada's jurisdiction. It was not within Nevada. So they don't have jurisdiction, period. End of case, done deal, over. That's it. But because the court used the word affirmation, now I have lawyers telling me, well, they approved the judgment. That's nothing you can do about that. They read it. They did not. But anyways, these lawyers and these judges and everything else, they want to be paid. I understand that. And my beef is, how are they being paid? They're being paid from something that they can't be paid from. You cannot, get money from a trust. That's the whole purpose of a trust being, is that it's there to protect the beneficiaries. That's why it's a trust. And for a court of law to not know that is just mind-boggling to me. I mean, how can you be a judge? Supposedly in this state of Nevada, there's a requirement that you would have had to be a lawyer at the bar here in Nevada for a period of at least 5 years before you can qualify to be a judge. Well, with 5 years of legal experience, having passed the bar, and to be a judge, how in the hell do you not know what trust law is? I mean, Jesus Christ! I mean, even me as a beneficiary, I cannot use any of the money that's held in a trust, even if it's held in my name as a beneficiary. I cannot rely upon or use any of that money until I actually receive it in the form of whatever it is. It has to be given to me by the trustee of the trust, has to disperse whatever I'm entitled to me. Then I have it. Then it's mine. But until that happens, whatever the trust is just anticipation or an expectancy, courts call it. It's not an actual title to anything. The trustee holds title in a way, but he holds it for the beneficiary's interest. They have equity, but they can't use any of it until they get it. That is the law of trust. It's not complicated. It's very, very simple. As a matter of fact, as legal principles go, it's probably one of the cleanest, most direct points of law there is. Nothing can be simpler than a trust law. The whole premise is simple. You're holding something for the benefit of somebody else. And until that person gets what is being held for them, it's not theirs. So nobody can attack that interest. The court can't attack it. A judge can't attack it. A lawyer can't attack it. Nobody can attack that. It's being held. It's exempt from all types of activity. That's the whole purpose of a trust, period. And why don't these judges understand this? It's over my head. It's just completely unfathomable to me. You just cannot understand it. And now we have this Judge Gephardt who's considering a motion that was filed the other day for $52,000 in legal fees against me. But I don't have a contract for these legal fees. These lawyers aren't working for me. They claim to be working on the behalf of my sister, who, remember, is the losing party. She was removed as trustee, so really, technically, she doesn't have any standing to speak of before the court because she was violating the law. And she shouldn't have any standing in Nevada. She's a criminal. And for her to have lawyers that are supposedly working for her, they claim that they're protecting her interest in the trust. But a spendthrift trust protects beneficiaries' interest all by itself. It doesn't need a lawyer's protection because the document itself protects the beneficiaries. So my sister doesn't need any help from these lawyers. And in essence, what are these lawyers doing? They're really attacking the trust because they're trying to be paid from the corpus of a trust, and they can't do that. If they're going to be paid, I grant you, if they're doing work, they should be paid, but they have the responsibility to make sure that they're going to be paid, and that's their burden, not anybody's burden but their own. And when you have a client that has no money and you're relying upon her equity in a trust, you're misguided, my friend. You're not going to get that money. And I'm an antagonist because I'm explaining to the lawyers that they're not going to be paid. At least they're not going to be paid from the trust, and they're not going to be paid from me. If they want to be paid, they're going to have to go after my sister, Wanda, and good luck there, because that lady doesn't have two quarters to rub together and never did in her life and never will. My mother, while she was alive, had to take care of my sister because my sister was incapable of taking care of herself. And my sister's such a moron, she's probably qualified to be in the Congress. Maybe she could move to San Francisco and replace Nancy Pelosi. That would be a good job for her. She has about as much capability as any of those people. But anyways, that's enough for today. I've said my piece, and I'll talk to you again tomorrow. We'll see what else is happening in the world and what's going on. And give us a call sometime at 702-493-5222. Help support this radio station by calling into it, and give us your thoughts and your ideas and on what we can do to straighten things out in this country. We'd be glad to hear from you, and we look forward to that. So give us a call and let us know what you think about what's going on. And we'll be glad to put you on the air and see what you had to say. Be good to let all the people hear what's happening and what your ideas are. And then we'll keep track of those ideas, and we'll let other people know what they are. And if they support your idea, then they can go down as supporting it. And someday when we have enough power and juice, we'll be able to get those ideas out. So listen up and call in and let us hear from you.